please, we ask you to proceed through the exit closest to you, go outside, move away from the building, and don't come back in until our fire officials have instructed everyone to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise for pledge allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we've got a full complement of regular members, so I don't need to appoint any alternates. Let's see, Johnny, Bruce are not here, and haven't seen Ted or Roger. So we do have a quorum. We got seven voting members, and we will proceed. Our meeting tonight is divided into basically two parts. The first is administrative board work, where we got our business done. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve, regional impact determinations and any discussions with town staff. And then we have under actually design review, site plan, that are public hearings. There's actually 4. And 2 of them, the applicant has requested continuance. So if anyone is here for, and what I'll do, I'll take these individually and ask for a motion from the board to continue. The continuance date would be June 1st, 2022. So a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a site plan for the construction of a 7,200 square foot warehouse and wholesale building and associated site plan improvements. 3 Enterprise Drive, tax map 15, lot 62-3, zone commercial 2. 3 Enterprise Drive LLC is the owner and the applicant, and they have requested continuance to the 1st of June. I will take a motion.
So moved
Second.
till the 1st of June.
I have a second from Jake.
Second?
Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative. And the Enterprise warehouse has been continued to the 1st of June. I just want to note that the only official notice of this continuance is the notice right now that I will give, and that the application for the formal review of a site plan for the construction of 7,200 square warehouse and wholesale building at 3 Enterprise Drive, 3 Enterprise LLC, the owner and applicant, has been continued to the 1st of June at 7 p.m. right here. Next, we have a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a site plan for a trucking terminal and associated site improvements at number 15 Rockingham Road, tax map 13, lot 99, zone commercial 2. Alfred Jr. and Nicole Patori are the owners, and Patori Brothers Paving is the applicant. They have requested continuance to the 1st of June. I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, motion to continue to the 1st of June.
Second?
Motion by Al, second by Jake. Any discussion from the board? I don't see any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those voting no, abstentions, chair's affirmative, and motion carries. And the only official public notice is this right here, at the application for a formal review of a site plan for a trucking terminal and associated site improvements at 15 Rockingham Road, tax map 13, lot 99, zone commercial 2. Alfred and Nicole Patori Jr. are the owners, and Patori Brothers Paving is the applicant, is continued to June 1st, 2022 at 7 p.m. right here. This is your only official notice. Now we'll go back to administrative board work. We have approval of minutes. We have April 6th and April 13th. I'll take those separately in case someone was absent and they would like to abstain.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve the planning board minutes of April 6th, 2022.
Second?
Motion by Al. I have a second by Jake. Any discussion on the minutes of April 6th? I don't hear any, so all those in favor of the approving the minutes of April 6th, 2022 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair is affirmative, and the minutes of April 6th, 2022 are approved.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 13th, 2022.
There's a
Second.
motion by Al, second by Jake. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, and the minutes of April 13th, 2022 are approved. Next, we have regional impact determinations. I didn't see any on the,
There are none this evening.
none, okay. And discussions with the town staff. I just want to note that Colleen's going to be leaving us for to me, a very nice and attractive job. So I thought we were always nice and attractive here, but as of the 13th of May, Colleen will be Colleen's last day. And I appreciate, I think it's about 7 years you've been with us.
6 years now, yep.
It's gone awfully fast, believe me. But it's been great, very thankful to have you, the work you've done, and I think you've had a terrific team, so.
Mr. Chairman, I think she deserves a big hand.
I found Colleen very helpful, so certainly very appreciative of your work, and I know there's people in town also, so.
I don't know how red my face is getting right now, but, you know.
Pretty red.
But thank you, you know, Londonderry is a great town to work for. And, you know, you guys as volunteers, you know, do some great work, so I've enjoyed my time here, but looking forward to a new challenge, so thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to add, and may you have bright skies ahead.
I like that, Ann.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, any other discussions? Let's see, Ted is here.
Art, should I sit down here? Seat's taken, Ted. Come on over.
You have to get in early, Ted.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Pass the stuff, Ted. Okay, any other discussions, Colleen?
Nope, I have nothing else.
Okay. Between Colleen and myself, we sent out to the board, the State Office of Planning and Development had a noontime seminar on EV stations. That, the link is there to review that on the state's website. And also the 2022 Spring Planning Conference. All the information from that is up there, and it starts with Planning Board Basics, which is especially for newer people, good for the board to review. It goes into the right to know law. It's quite explicit on when one should recuse oneself, and it's well worth even reviewing for older members. So I know Lynn was at the conference also. It was a virtual conference, which makes it very handy to attend. Of course, it was a nice Saturday morning that it was spent in front of the computer screen, but it was definitely worthwhile for. And the second half of it is this coming Saturday. It's 9 to noon time, and you had to register for the link for it. So. And I know from the noontime webinar they had, we learned a lot about EV stations, so what the state is doing, what there are for requirements, the types, locations, and all that type of stuff. So there'll be more coming on that, I think, as we look at our site plan to update it. Anything from the board?
I was just going to say, if anybody wanted to actually see that, they'll be here on May 19th at the Energy Committee meeting, talking about those electric stations.
Okay, and the Energy Committee meeting is, it's Thursday, May 19th,
7
7 p.m.
right
right
here.
here.
Yep.
So it's very worthwhile. So there seems to be a lot of interest with EVs and people wanting to charge. At least that's what the state is finding. And Jennifer Wilcox is the one heading up that program for the DES. Okay, we'll go into our design review site plan. We have a public hearing on an application to modify the existing conditions of approval of a previously approved site plan, 213 Rockingham Road, tax map 15, lot 23-1. This is zone commercial 1, and Route 102, POD, Gagny Family Trust are the owners and the applicant. And we have to ascertain completeness.
Yep, so Mr. Chair, there are no outstanding checklist items. Staff recommends the application or request be accepted as complete.
Okay, I take a motion for completeness.
Motion for completeness, Mr. Chairman.
second.
Second by Jake. Any discussion on the completeness? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, and the application has been accepted as complete. This starts the 65-day time period in which this board has to render a decision, and also starts the presentation and the.
Thank you,
so-
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Tom Hildreth. I'm an attorney with McLean Middleton, representing the owner and her company, Regency Home Health. Many of you may remember having been on the board last October when you approved this site plan. This is a small building that started life as a single-family home at 213 Rockingham Road. At some point, it was
Could you
converted.
just, excuse me for a second, I just want to note that Johnny Verani has stepped down from the board and won't be participating in the discussion or the voting. So,
So the building was built in 1994, initially as a home, and at some point it was converted to what was kind of a day spa. Our client bought it a couple of years ago for purposes of converting it to a professional office to support her home health business. And she was in last October for site plan approval for a 672 square foot addition to the back of the building that had earlier received several variances because the building sits on the lot in a non-conforming way. This board approved it, subject to conditions, one of which is that we obtain an easement from the adjacent property owner for a small section of sewer pipe that appears to cross the corner of the abutter's lot, although that's not even entirely certain. The records about exactly where that sewer pipe lay are pretty rudimentary. But out of an abundance of caution, our civil engineers showed the line coming across a small corner of the lot, and that was one of many conditions. The other conditions dealt with site features, drainage, and grading, and so forth. And those are frankly still open. We got a letter just last week from Hoyle Tanner with some final review items that are being addressed. And because of the ongoing back and forth between the engineers, we came in early February and asked that you extend the conditional approval to June 3rd, which you did. So the current conditional approval expires on June 3. And tonight, I'm here just to request that the single condition relating to the easement for the sewer pipe be removed as a condition of approval. And the rationale is set forth in my letter. I'll restate it here. But just to let you know what we did, after getting the condition, we prepared an easement, we prepared a plan, staff reviewed it and approved it. We sent it to the adjacent property owner, who advised us that she did not want to grant an easement at this time because she has some active development plans for her own parcel and is not sure whether there'll be any implication to this section of the property. But I submit, and I wrote this in my letter, that the condition is kind of unrelated to the project that we're doing. The sewer has existed since the building was built in 1994. It's never been an issue. It's never been dug up. It's never had a need of service. We're not increasing the sewer size. We're not increasing our demand for water. Our office use will have less demand than it did when it was a single-family home. The line, so point one was the line has long existed, has been unaffected by previous uses since 1994, and is unaffected by this proposal. The second point is that if there ever came a time when work were needed on this easement, and we didn't have a formal written easement from the abutting property owner, the incumbent owner of our site would have something called an easement by necessity, and the law would allow that property owner to access the sewer pipe for the purpose of whatever emergent services were required. The third point was that the small portion of the adjacent property that may be clipped by this line is entirely within the building setbacks, and so the owner of that property can't put any improvements in that area anyway, unless they got some kind of zoning relief to permit that. And at that point, they would be alerted to the fact that the sewer line may be there. And so for all of those reasons, the fact, frankly, that we can't get it, the neighboring owner will not provide it, and we think it's unnecessary and unrelated, we request that that condition be removed from the conditions of approval.
Okay, thank you. Colleen?
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff typically, we recommend and would like to see that easement be recorded so that there is a formal agreement in place, but we do acknowledge, as was stated, that there is this easement by necessity, the fact that it is an existing sewer line. So we appreciate the efforts to try and obtain the easement and, you know, our understanding of the fact that that's not possible at this point. So staff don't have any objection to the request for a modification and would recommend that the board grant the request to modify those conditions by eliminating the requirement for a sewer easement.
Okay, what I'll do, I'll go through the board, and then we'll go to the public for any, you know, questions, comments, concerns. So, on the board, I'll start with Ann.
I looked over the plans, I don't have any issues. The only thing I have a question about, where are the handicap parking spots? I see the crosshatched line, but there's no indicator for handicap, where they would be. I'm just curious. How many parking spots are there? Because I noticed the handicap ramp is on the front door, correct? I'm
I've
just
got,
looking at-
I've got our civil engineer,
Curious about
Jared Gott from Dubay.
There's no, there's no change to the plan by this request, so they do have the required number of ADA parking spaces
Okay.
provided on the plan, and this request does not modify that.
Okay, that's fine then, never mind. Thank you.
Okay, Deb.
I don't have anything, thank
Jeff.
you.
Yeah, no, I just thank you for taking the time and the efforts to try to make that easement work, but I have nothing further.
So is there any liability to the town
No,
situation?
no, and because it really is, since it is an existing sewer line and as stated, the engineering plans indicate that it may be crossing the abutting property, it may not be crossing the abutting property, but there's nothing about this site plan that is modifying that sewer line. Our preference is to have the easement just to make it clear that there is the right for this owner to maintain, but it's not a necessity and there's not an implication for the town.
My only concern is down the road, if somebody has a complaint, one of the two property owners, you know, and is there any liability to the town in that situation? If there isn't, I'm good with it.
It really would end up being a civil matter between the two property owners.
Al.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Johnny stepped down. Jason.
I'm all set, thank you.
Ted.
Just a question upon where exactly on the property is the sewer line? You can't really find it on the GIS maps.
And the only thing that we had to go by was some kind of a handwritten field card that somebody created when the sewer line was put in. It looks something like this. I don't know if you've seen them before. I had not. And so it's very imprecise from a civil engineering point of view. But the surveyor who did the plan, you know, wasn't exactly sure, but if you're facing 213 Rockingham Road from the street, the driveway's kind of to the right, and the line is believed to come in at that corner. That's where it enters the building.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, and I apologize, because there are no plan changes, I didn't have the plan in your packet, but if you're looking at the map geo, it's basically this corner here of, if you can,
Yep.
of that abutting property, that's where the sewer line may be crossing, and as indicated, it's within the building setbacks, it's within the required green buffer and green setbacks on that parcel as well.
So it really doesn't impede upon this parcel as much for construction, if anything, or renovations?
No, there are no proposed changes to the
Right.
sewer line, and very unlikely that there would be construction, there would not be construction of a building without variances, and there would not be without waivers of the landscape buffers. There would not be, you know, even any pavement construction over that area.
Sounds good. I'm all set.
All set?
Just wanted to know where it was.
Mr. Chair, I'm all
Okay.
set.
Okay. Are there any abutters or anyone from the public have any questions, comments, concerns in regards to this amendment to the site plan? Do not see anyone, and we'll bring it back to the board, and I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to modify the October 6, 2021 conditional approval of the site plan amendment for a change of use from an existing spa to a professional office and for a 672 square foot building addition and associated site improvements, 213 Rockingham Road, map 15, lot 23-1, zoned C1 and Route 28 POD, Gagny Family Trust, owner and applicant, by deleting precedent condition number 5 relative to the sewer easement.
Second.
Motion by Al, second by Jake. The board have any further discussion? I don't see any. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions? And chair votes affirmative, and motion carries, and the modified site plan has been amended. So
Thank you very much, everyone.
you're welcome.
I mean, good luck on your venture.
And let the record show Johnny is back here. Brings us up to 8 voting members in total. Let's see, next we have a public hearing on an application for a formal review of a condominium conversion at 350 Mammoth Road, tax map 9, lot 22-1. This is zone agricultural residential 1. Daniel R. Howes is the owner and the applicant, and we need to certify completeness.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, there are no outstanding checklist items, and staff recommends the application be accepted as complete.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the application as complete per staff's recommendation memorandum dated May 4th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion by Al, second by Jeff. And any discussion on the completeness? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and chair votes affirmative. The application has been accepted as complete. This starts the 65-day timeframe in which this board has to render a decision, and also it begins the presentation and public hearing. And just identify yourself for our records, please.
Certainly, sir. I'm Craig Francisco with Bedford Design Consultants. It's a pretty simple condo conversion, actually. To its existing duplex, and we'd like to make a condominium conversion. We have state subdivision approval. We've submitted the condo docs. I don't believe there's really any outstanding items that I'm aware of. To be blunt and brief, there's really not much to talk about. We have a DOT, a letter from DOT, we have site distance, we have whatever. I will certainly answer any
Yeah,
questions.
the conversions are basically simple, but by statute, they're considered a
I understand.
subdivision, So we have to go through all the stuff. Colleen?
Yep, Mr. Chair, members of the board, very straightforward, the conversion of the existing duplex to the condominium. We do have a couple of recommended conditions of approval, just verification of the map and lot numbers with assessing, executed condo docs be provided for recording, and our typical requirements for digital copies and LCHIP and recording fees. Again, it's a very straightforward project. They've dotted their i's and crossed their t's, so we would recommend approval.
Okay, I'll go to the board, and then we'll go to the public for public input. So I'll start with Ted, then I'll get back to Jake when he returns.
I have no questions.
Okay, Jason,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Johnny,
No questions.
Al,
No questions.
No questions.
Jeff,
No questions.
Deb,
Nothing, thank you.
Ian.
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Are there any abutters or anyone from the public have any questions, comments, concerns in regards to this condo conversion? Could you come to the microphone, please, and just identify yourself by name and address, please?
I represent CSR Realty Trust right behind this.
Yeah, you need to use the
Oh,
microphone.
sorry.
That's so people can hear you that are listening to us on TV.
We're CSR Realty Trust right behind this property.
Yes.
I just want to know, once they condoize this, the common area that is proposed on this here, can they build on that anymore?
No. Nope.
So that's
What
it.
you see there now stays there now.
That's forever.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Is there anyone else? This is on the condo conversion, Jake.
Yeah,
You have anything?
I'm all set.
Oh, okay. And seeing no one else, we'll bring this back to the board for motion that I will accept.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a motion to grant conditional approval of the condominium conversion plan for 350 Mammoth Road, map 9, lot 22-1, zoned AR1. Daniel R. Howes, owner and applicant, in accordance with plans prepared by Bedford Design Consultants dated March 8, 2022, last revised April 13, 2022, with the precedent conditions to be fulfilled within 2 years and prior to plan signature and general and subsequent conditions of approval to be fulfilled, as noted in the staff recommendation memorandum dated May 4th, 2022.
Second.
Motion by Al, I have a second by Jake. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and chair votes affirmative, and motion carries, and the condo
Thank you.
conversion has been conditionally approved. Okay. Next, we have a application for a conditional use permit per Londonderry zoning ordinance, section 6.3.11.c and use table 4.1.2 to allow 6,000 square feet, 6,000 square foot convenience store with drive-through and gas station with 16 fueling stations and 3 diesel fueling stations on the Route 28 Performance Overlay District and the Route 28, okay, I already said that, at 174 Rockingham Road, tax map 15, lot 61, zone commercial 2, and Route 28 Performance Overlay District, 178 Rockingham Road, tax map 15, lot 61-7, zone commercial 2, and Route 28 POD. So that's 174 and 178 Rockingham Road. 2V Londonderry LLC and 2V Londonderry West LLC are the owners, and New Sunset Realty is the applicant. And completeness,
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, there are no outstanding checklist items. Staff recommends that the board accept this conditional use permit application as complete.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the application as complete per the staff recommendation memorandum dated May 4th, 2022.
Second.
Motion by Al, second by Jake on the completeness. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and chair votes affirmative. The application has been accepted as complete, and this starts the public hearing, and I think we're still subject to the 65-day time frame in which to render a decision. So I have familiar faces here that I've seen, I think, our conceptual discussion on this, so identify yourselves for our records, please, and we'll proceed.
Will do. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Ari Pollack. I'm an attorney with Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell in Concord, New Hampshire. To my right is Jeff Cavan of the TF Moran office. We're here this evening for the property owners of lots 61 and 61-7. That is 2V Londonderry LLC owns the one side, 2V Londonderry West LLC owns the other, and then their tenant is New Sunset Realty LLC. Let me apologize for not wearing a tie this evening. It just wasn't going to happen.
A little bit of a problem there. Looks like you got
I got a little bit of a problem here,
Get
yeah.
one of those clip-ons, Ari.
Maybe. I couldn't even put a coat over it, so
hope it's
my
recovered.
apologies.
Hope it's
My mother would
recovering.
be ashamed on my behalf.
Jeff, what's your excuse?
You make a good point. Anyway, we are before you this evening seeking a conditional use permit under zoning ordinance section 6.3.11.c.1 to pursue a site plan for a business use of motor vehicle station. This is a subcategory use that is allowed in the underlying commercial 2 district where the properties are located, but one that requires a conditional approval because it is located within the Route 28 Performance Overlay Zone. And so interestingly enough, it's the performance overlay that requires the conditional use approval. It is a use that's actually recognized as permitted in the zone. It was deemed not to have regional impact at your April 6th meeting. A portion of the 2 properties, specifically lot 61, and that plan behind you is pretty blacked out from my perspective, but hopefully you could see it on your screens more clearly. Lot 61 was granted the same conditional use permit that we seek tonight in July of 2019, which at that time led to a further site plan approval for a mixed-use concept that was hosting a convenience store and fueling area on the right side of the picture, if you will, and a financial institution on the left side. And so we were in to obtain and did obtain a conditional use for the motor vehicle station on the right side of the map. Since then, the concept has changed to expand the fueling station and to eliminate the financial institution use. So we're back before you tonight for a renewed, or I should say, a same again conditional use approval to pursue the service station site plan on both parcels, which would therefore eliminate the site planning that had been done for the bank. The bank goes away. Our reasoning for the conditional use approval, or our support for the application, frankly, is the same now as it was in 2019, which is that the site can be professionally designed in a manner that complies with your performance criteria and the sections relating to conditional use in your ordinance. And specifically, we've supplied, and I think this is probably what's behind you, we've supplied a conditional use plan dated March 15, 2022, that illustrates a conceptual layout that would comply with the dimensional standards of Table 410 as applies in the Route 28 Performance District, or Performance Overlay District, namely conformance with lot size, frontage, building height, setbacks, coverage, and so forth. If the conditional use is approved, I want to make clear, again, we've put a layout in front of you that could be proposed as the site plan and would be compliant, but nonetheless, it's our intention to come in and ask for some waivers of setbacks and other landscaping items because we frankly think that it provides a better layout for the property and actually is a measure that was pursued last time around, granted last time around, and accommodates what was a prior taking by DOT to adjust the road width in this area and widen the highway. So we really can't do a good job of honoring that front setback, have a good traffic flow and layout without some relief, but we have shown it conceptually as fully compliant so that you can be assured the conditional use does not require waivers to stand on its own. Additionally, in terms of other criteria in the ordinance, the use does comply with Section 6.7.7.2 in terms of promoting high-quality commercial development within the performance corridor. It serves public convenience and public interests by offering passerby traffic and destination traffic, transportation and arterial corridor needs. Everybody's got to fuel somewhere for both vehicles and truck refueling, and it also pairs those uses with convenience services, related goods, related motorist services, drive-up window, some picnic table opportunities, things of that nature. Lastly, and as was found to be the case in 2019, the property is reasonably suited for transportation services as it was designed before and as it can be designed now in terms of professional engineering standards for the fuel storage tanks, the fuel dispensing islands, stormwater management, groundwater protection. You will see more of the same when the site plan comes forward. It's going to be a similar approach to site management and simply spread across both parcels instead of having gas on one side and bank on the other. And so we understand from the visit to the Heritage Commission and our conceptual visit last month that we have details to work out relating to site layout, vehicle and pedestrian flow and opportunity, building elevations and architecture, signage, all lighting, landscaping, all the things that go into a full-blown site plan package. Those items need to be resolved. They are not yet resolved. We will work with staff, whoever that might turn out to be, Colleen. But
You gonna leave
we,
your number, Colleen?
she's never giving me her cell phone number, I can assure you of that. Anyway, we have work to do. We know we have work to do. This is a step one to unlocking the door for that application, finishing that work and coming back with a full site plan application. And so, just as before in 2019 and 2020, we're confident that we can find acceptable solutions that will ultimately allow the site plan to be approved. And so tonight, we're asking for the first step, which is approval of the conditional use nature of the use within the performance district. Happy to take any questions, and I do have dressed
big
down
guns
Jeff
next to
to my
you.
right.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Colleen for staff input, and then the board, and then to the public. Colleen?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, as Ari indicated, this is the first step in a site plan review process. So, for the conditional use, you're being asked to review and approve the use in accordance with the zoning ordinance. So I can tell you that the conditional use permit plan that is here before you meets the dimensional criteria of the zoning ordinance in terms of buffer setbacks, building setbacks, et cetera. There are, as acknowledged, items relating to the traffic circulation, parking layout, those type of items that would need to be addressed. But the board does have in your packet the full impact assessment evaluation that was provided by the applicant. In addition to the traffic impact analysis, there will be further traffic coordination as part of the site plan process. But this is for the board's discussion. Is if you believe that this use is reasonable and in compliance with the intent of the performance overlay district, then you do have a motion here to recommend or to conditionally recommend approval.
Okay, thanks. Ian?
Good evening. I'd like to ask a couple of questions about the plan. I believe the use is applicable. But I have, for one thing, the area north of the fueling stations, it's 12 feet wide or 15?
This 12-foot aisle, yep.
12 feet
12
wide?
feet there.
What is the direction of the flow you intend right there? The traffic flow?
So that is exiting traffic. Oh, well,
It's
so
where the
that's
three
a little
bushes are, below that, right there?
Yeah. So there's a little island or striped area that separates
right there.
the exiting traffic. That's just an aisle that gives you some circulation around those pumps.
But which way? Because it's only 12 feet wide and you may have two cars,
Well, you can see the circulation in front of the store is, 2 lanes there, but it's only exiting on the lower side. So I would see traffic heading out in that direction.
Heading out in that direction?
Yeah.
This way.
So somebody might swing around, go to the pumps under the canopy, and then leave through that little right turn slip lane.
So the question is, I don't really know the answer, but the question's a good opportunity to again point out that we're not asking you to sign off tonight on
Right. I was just
particular.
curious.
So,
'Cause I
oh,
didn't-
ask away, but,
You see directions
right.
on every
Yeah,
area.
there isn't an arrow there. You're right.
Yeah, I think they have to get the plan really developed, and
Right,
when they come
right.
in and present the
And-
site plan, then we can get into the meat of it.
Right, but I was looking in terms of the amount of traffic going through the project. Also, the parking spots, I'm not sure if this was brought up before, the parking spots along the right side of the property,
Yeah.
there are maybe 14 spots. I haven't seen that before in a gas station. Usually there's none there, and that's usually facing the street. Do you see any issues with pedestrians exiting the vehicles, crossing the 2 lanes, and plus the gas
No, I mean,
pump area?
typically you see most of the people parking to go in are going to park in the front. There will be some employees that will probably park out there. And there's some overflow parking. But again, most gas stations, you have people walking, in between pumps and so forth.
But I've never seen, well, I drove through London's area, exit 5 area, all the gas stations.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's putting the pedestrians at more of a disadvantage because of the 2 lanes of traffic going through. It's just something that you might consider.
It's
I
interesting
know it's
because,
kind of late stage in the game.
right, yeah, it's interesting because, to me, that's an opportunity for somebody who doesn't want to navigate between the pumps or jockey for a space in front of the store to park out of the way and have a little bit more of a walk, but not have the congestion.
Okay.
And it's certainly a very slow-speed area as people are coming and going from the islands.
Okay. Next thing is, Londonderry's regulations state, I believe, the parking spaces are supposed to be 20 feet long and not 18 feet?
Correct. Yep.
Right, okay, they say 18 on the plans.
That will need to be revised. as
Okay.
part of the site plan.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is only like a rough conceptual that we're
Right, but
dealing
it
with
just
momentarily. so.
may influence the width of the driveway area too,
Yeah,
It-
that would be the next
Yeah,
step of it.
I just
uh,
want to
yeah.
mention it, looking at that. And I looked over the traffic study, looks good, but could you just say a few words about it? It was, you had some concerns about the late afternoon traffic?
Yeah, so basically, we did a update on the traffic study, basically for this application. And so you're taking away the traffic that would go to the bank and adding some traffic that would use the diesel pumps, basically, as the change. For opening year, the queue is very similar to what we experienced last time. It backs up towards that driveway. We're treating that driveway the same way as per approval, a restriction for no left out, and we would paint do not block driveways in that locale.
Okay.
So we would be treating that the exact same way.
Okay,
We will end up doing a full expansion of that traffic study. We know there's development occurring in the area, so we'll have to update it and go through New Hampshire DOT and through the town's review process as part of the site plan.
okay. I just had some concern about that area being kind of tight for the amount of
Yep.
fueling stations, but other than that, hopefully that can be worked out in the future. Thank you.
Was that in?
Yep.
Okay, Deb?
Okay, so I'm going to mention what I mentioned last time about, we don't have them in place yet, but stepping up to the higher standard for the tanks that we're going to be put in place. I mean, I know it's not there and it's something you don't have to do, but I really would hope that you would consider updating that. I didn't hear you mention that. I am still concerned about traffic, and I also noticed, and it's a big topic of conversation as you sat in the audience earlier this evening, you heard us bring it up, charging stations. Did you all think about that? Maybe not having as many gas and a couple of charging stations instead, since there's that Volkswagen money out there?
Yeah, I guess I wonder how many people visit a convenience store for 5 minutes and plug in their vehicle. But we certainly could take a look at it. I know the operator has some experience with that, and it's not ruled in
But I
or
mean, if
out
you're
at
the
this
only
stage.
gas station on that corner off of exit 5, I mean, there's 3 of them, the 2 others there, but I mean, if you're the only one that has that.
Yeah, no, it's a
that's
good point. Maybe it's a
And now they're
draw.
making
Sure.
electric trucks, I hear, dump trucks and stuff, so.
Again, I don't know that, the challenge with charging versus fossil fuels is you're filling a tank versus charging a battery. One takes 10 minutes, the other takes hours. So I guess we'd have to just take a look at whether it's really going to make any sense. But it's a good point, and it's not ruled in or out at this stage.
Okay, the other thing, again, I'm just kind of crazy with energy stuff since I've been thrown into that world lately. Have you thought about, using solar on your roofs to make yourselves net zero?
Yeah, you had mentioned that the last time. It's a good point. Again, not ruled in or out. I know that every
I know this comes later on, but I didn't hear you mention it when you were talking about things that you had gone through, what we spoke about here. So I just wanted to reiterate that, and I do have the same concerns that Ann does, very tight, and the traffic.
Right, so the tightness is addressed by some of the site waivers that we want to bring forward. And that, I think, will help with some of the internal circulation. But we, again, for this exercise tonight, we needed to show you that we could comply with the layout.
Yeah, and I know this is gonna sound terrible, but I know you have these little islands here. I sometimes wonder about those and on their efficiency with plowing. You can plow, since it's such a tight space, it would be so much, give you more relief if you didn't have to have those islands there like that you could, just plow right through and give yourself a little bit more space and maybe add it someplace else, like more of the green space someplace other than there. But like I said, I understand this is just all conceptual and very beginning stages, but things to think about when you do it, because those islands always end up getting so dirty and, trash is always there and.
You've hit upon a classic issue, right, where it's the pull and push of trying to green up the site and provide some infiltration areas, and we're tight on coverage to begin with, versus the nuisance of working around some of those areas and trying to clean up a site after a storm. I mean, it's.
Like I said, I understand.
You did a great
the
job of
green. I love the
highlighting a
green,
classic
but-
issue.
I love the green, but, I'm looking at it thinking, it's so tight. If they had that extra space, it would be more, for me, it would be more of a, it would relieve some of the safety concerns.
So regulations require, some of that internal green space, which is part of the reason some of the islands end up being required.
No, I
It could
understand.
be that as they get into the site design, if that potentially asking the board for waivers on, those site plan regulation requirements for internal green space, if they're bulking up landscape areas elsewhere. I think we've had the conversation on other sites. I know Giovanni's brought it up and mentioned the exact thing with the plowing logistics, and really how well the landscaping within those small islands. If you've got an island that's 200 square feet, is that really sufficient for those plants to survive?
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I can say about this at this moment in time. But yeah, those are still my concerns.
I just want to add about the EV stations. At the DES, Jessica Wilcox heads that program, and is probably an excellent resource to contact and
There's a
get
lot of funds.
information. So you kind of coordinate with what the state is doing, because the state is starting to reach out, looking at, 93 is one of the
Right.
ways that looking at, there's, 95, there's, other routes in the state looking for stations, and then also they handle, what money they have got from the ACA program and the Volkswagen settlement. But she is quite good at it, knows the types of stations, knows what the use are, they know, where the EVs are. The highest number of EVs are Rockingham County and Hillsborough County, so we're right in the middle of it. And it seems to be an increasing, number.
Now, this is something the applicant is considering.
Yeah, yeah. But well worthwhile investigating, because I think it's planning for the future. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so one of the criteria for granting this waiver would be the application would meet a public need or convenience. In the packet, you did provide the impact analysis, so thank you for taking the time to do that. Could you unpack that impact analysis for the community? What's the economic impact of moving from the original plan of a bank to now a convenience store with increased pumping stations? What's the financial aspect of it?
We haven't compared the environment or the economic difference between the two. Strictly, we're looking at typically fiscal impact is, is there a burden to the town, for this conditional use. And, on this basis, the rough assessed value of the property after constructed would be $850,000. You'd expect a tax revenue of $15,000 to $18,000. Obviously won't have a negative impact on any surrounding property values or what have you. And it would bring 15 to 20 jobs. As far as, so normally you then look at what would be a burden to the town would be if, school, which this would have none, and then emergency services and that type of thing. In that it's private, you really don't see any other economic impacts to the town. So it's a tax positive to the town.
Thank you.
But
From
we
a
haven't
service-
compared
Yeah,
that to the bank.
Right. I was just going to make that last point, that what we have done is compared the proposal to the requirements of the ordinance. We have not compared prior proposal to new proposal with the argument that one's better or worse than the other. We're making the argument that this proposal complies.
Okay. So do we think that this proposal here, again with the convenience store and additional fueling pumps, will provide more services than opposed to the bank? I guess that's the question I'm trying to kind of unpack.
Again, I don't know that the comparison of old to new is relevant, but I do agree with what you're saying, that the offering of the diesel services, the offering of a more full-fledged service station, I think can be argued to be more appealing than another bank that, may very well be replaced with mobile banking services more quickly than fossil fuel services.
So would could you then maybe unpack this a little bit? Granting the condition of approval of this application would definitely meet some public need or convenience. And what would that public need or convenience be?
Yeah, if you're driving a vehicle and need fuel, this is a good place to find it. You also, of course, have the convenience services that the station would offer, and whether it's restroom or some picnic area or some sort of a drive-through fast food type of vendor. Those are all services in demand by the passing by public, and as you well know, this road gets a significant amount of passerby traffic, not just from the interstate, but just around town and between towns.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
All set, Jeff?
Yep.
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, my question on the no left turn was answered, and I'm very happy about that. That's it.
Gianni,
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Jason?
I was kind of looking forward to having something other than just a gas station, another gas station. Obviously, there was always going to be one. Having a bank as opposed to the diesel fuel filling stations. But other than that, I mean, my only concern is, and I mentioned this last month, the left hand going towards the highway, people cutting across during a very busy time trying to get into the station from Rockingham. That is still a concern, but other than that, I'm fine.
Ted?
I'm all set. All other questions have been asked.
Okay. Jake?
I don't have any questions. I am all set.
Okay. Are there any abutters or anyone from the public that have any questions, comments, and concerns on the conditional use permit for this project? And I see a familiar hand and face back there. Ray, we miss you. Where you been?
I'm back from vacation.
Oh, well, good. I hope you had a good vacation. You must be energized now.
Well, no, I got to rest up, Come back from vacation, you got to recover. But anyway, Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. I understand this is kind of preliminary. There's a lot of
Yes.
things that they've got to do.
There's a ways yet to get there.
A lot of the questions that I might have asked have already been asked, but specifically, my questions are this, that it looks like a lot on a relatively small piece of property. I don't know what the acreage is here. I don't even know specifically where it's located on Route 28, because I don't see anything to
give me, now, we have Sims Drive.
Sims Drive.
Is there a traffic light at Sims Drive?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. But what kind of concerns me is the truck traffic, we're talking 18-wheelers here, coming in at this location here, because that's where they got to come in. They got to come in here and fuel up, and then they got to turn around and go back out somehow. Now, if they are able to turn around and go back out and head back to Manchester, I guess they can do that. Other than that, they got to kind of make their way through here and go out where the arrows are pointing in the wrong direction here. Maybe that's going to be corrected. Unless they're going to kind of circle around the buildings and go out this way here, out on Sims Drive.
I think they're still working that out, Ray. It's still
Okay, so,
in progress, I should say.
okay, all of this is very important, particularly, the other thing I'm wondering about is how many lanes are on 28, and is there a, what should we say, a medium strip in the middle here? Looks like there is on 28. Is there a
Yeah,
island?
if you can answer, Jeff.
There is an island.
Yeah, and there is a left turn into the site. There's a separate lane as you approach heading east.
Look at the.
Heading east from, coming from Manchester, there is a lane to turn, but no lights. So you're gonna have to be cutting across that traffic.
Well, you
Somebody
can,
is.
you can do it two ways. You can take a left into the site, or you can go to the signal and turn onto Sims Drive and
But-
turn into the site.
So your intent is to bring 18-wheelers in
No.
that way?
No, the 18-wheelers come in off of Rockingham Road at that driveway.
At that driveway, so they are gonna be cutting across the
Yep.
northbound traffic.
Yep. But there is a signal there that creates gaps as you get reds and greens and whatnot.
At Sims Drive,
No, for the people turning left into the site as well.
there are lights?
No, there's gaps that are created by the signal changes.
Yeah, so,
In theory, yeah.
Yes, and so
So
Ray,
Ray,
some
look-
of that will be worked out with the full traffic analysis that's done. And I believe, and I may be wrong, but I think when this was the bank concept, that or the Rockingham Road entry was a right in, right out only. I don't think that configuration has been determined right now.
yeah,
And
okay.
that'll be, because that is the DOT curb cut, they'll need to determine if they're okay with those vehicle turns,
Right, so
heading and turning left in.
So that is a concern there, whether DOT is even gonna approve that, which would have to be approved before you get an approval here, I guess.
We previously have an approval, and we were proposing
Well,
improvements on Rockingham Road as part of that driveway in the exact same spot.
but that was for when there was a bank there, yes?
That's correct.
This is a little different situation, right?
It is a little different, yeah.
Right. Okay, well, I mean, that's the concern. I mean, obviously, traffic safety. We're talking about 18-wheelers going in here. I was asking, how are they gonna turn and go back out? Or,
Yeah, they can,
They can,
do you want me to answer?
yes.
I just want to make sure. So they would come in off of Rockingham Road, they would fuel up,
Oh.
and they would go straight down that drive out to Sims Drive, and then take a right, and they can either go left or right at the signal.
right, and what are these here?
Those are potential parking spaces if they want to park and go into the store,
For 18-wheelers,
or someone with a trailer or what have you.
or a camper or something like that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Anyone else?
Art, I did come up with a question, if I may.
Yes.
Have you thought about where you're looking to do snow storage?
Again, there's very little snow storage, like on most of the sites of this type and size. The small storms will get pushed off, just off of the edges, and then anything more substantial will have to be loaded and removed off-site.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yep.
there anyone else? I don't see any. Bring it back to the board for decision-making. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to allow the use of a 6,000 square foot convenience store with drive-through and gas station with 16 fueling stations and 3 diesel fueling stations at 174 and 178 Rockingham Road, map 15, lots 61 and 61-7, zone C2, and Route 28 POD 2V, Londonderry LLC and 2V Londonderry West LLC owners, New Sunset Realty applicant in accordance with the CUP submittal, materials provided by TF Moran Incorporated, dated April 14th, 2022.
Second.
I
Second.
heard over here first, but he's probably closer. Sorry, Jake.
It's all yours.
Motion by Al, second by Jeff. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, and the chair votes affirmative, and you have a conditional use permit and work to do. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Colleen, may the fourth be with you. Oh, super. Thanks so much.
Okay. So, safe healing there, Ari.
Thank you.
No tie-tying just yet, so. Okay, next we have our last hearing, and we have an application for a conditional use permit for 64,137 square feet of temporary wetland impact and 102,025 square feet of buffer impact for work within the Conservation Overlay District for the proposed replacement and removal of transmission line structures along the existing transmission line right-of-way for the 380 and 326 transmission line structure replacement project. Public Service Company of New Hampshire, doing business as Eversource Energy, is the applicant, and we have to determine completeness first, and then we can get going.
Yep, so Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff recommends the conditional use permit be accepted as complete.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the application as complete per staff's recommendation memorandum dated May 4th, 2022.
Second?
second, motion by Al, second by Jake, for completeness. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of completeness signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative, and the application has been accepted as complete. This starts the 65-day time frame, and also the public hearing and presentation. So just identify yourselves for our records, please, gentlemen, and we'll proceed.
I'm Kurt Nelson with Eversource, and I'm a licensing and permitting specialist.
And I am Connor Madison from GZA, consultant of Eversource, and we're also here with Lydia Morton of Eversource Project Services.
Okay, you get the team here.
Got the whole squad.
And we're back again, just as we promised we would be.
Yeah, we get familiar with each other. That's,
Right. It's been a couple months.
Right.
So this time we're here to present for a conditional use permit for upcoming structure replacement project on the 380 transmission line and 326 transmission line. You've seen us before, so I will keep this brief, and if you have any questions, we can get to those in the end. So we will be submitting a separate wetlands permit through the state for this project. It is called a statutory permit by notification, and you'll receive both the application and the approval letter. We're hoping to get that out within the next month or so. Our scope includes a total of 13 utility structures to be replaced and the removal of one. This is wood to steel structure replacements. We are proposing work off of 9 different roads per our plan, and we are not clearing any trees and we're not widening the right-of-way. This is a wood to steel structure replacement project. Like similar projects, our construction will be adhering to the proper 2019 BMP manual. This includes installing proper erosion controls, proper clean timber matting, as well as regulatory monitoring of the site. We'll be inspecting it at least weekly. For that statutory and permit by notification, we do work with the state through New Hampshire Fish and Game and Natural Heritage Bureau for any rare and endangered species, and they provide us our proper best management practices. We're actually still coordinating with New Hampshire Fish and Game on our best management practices, so we will get back to you on that. We're also filing an alteration of terrain permit through the state, so that is why we're still coordinating with New Hampshire Fish and Game, as it does undergo a more stringent review. I believe we should be getting that back within the month or so. We are hoping to start this project in earliest of June 2022. And I think I ran through that fairly quickly, but if you have any questions, we can also go through the plans as well.
Okay, what we'll do, we'll go to staff, we'll have Colleen give her input, we'll have the board input, and then we'll have public input. Colleen.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, as indicated, this is a replacement a project relating to those transmission line structures. This has been reviewed by the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission did recommend approval of the conditional use permit. I think it's a fairly straightforward project, as you know, they've been in a couple of times lately with some of their projects, and if you have any questions of staff, we're happy to let you know. But this is conditional use permit only for the work within the buffer. It will require the wetland permits in the future, but this it's not a site plan approval. It's just conditional use only.
Okay, thank you. Start with the board. Ann.
I went through it all. I really don't have much questions because it's similar to what you've done already, just in different areas. Just curious, will it have any effect on Route 93 because it's going over it?
Oh, excuse me, sorry, what was that question?
The effect on Route 93?
Oh, the effect on Route 93.
Yeah.
I can take
93.
that if you.
Yeah, I mean, we will be doing some structures, bracketing either side of 93.
right.
There's no wire pulling activity, however, associated with
okay.
this particular project.
Okay.
And we will be raising the structure, so the clearance will be assumingly higher.
I don't know if you have to
Right.
get the wires
Yeah.
over or not. You're all set.
Right.
Okay,
And-
that's all I had.
And we are, as you may be aware, we're in front of you very often for a series of these sorts of replacements. This work will be happening concurrently, as you may be aware, the very large right-of-way corridor that runs from Scobie Pond Substation through Londonderry. We'll be working sort of collectively on a number of these circuits at the same time. So we're sort of similar contractors going to be sort of hopscotching on various circuits throughout that right-of-way corridor.
Can I ask one more
Realizing a little bit of economy of scale doing it that way.
The right-of-way through Londonderry is larger than it is through Litchfield and going towards Hudson. Is that because the lines split off, going west and
Yeah,
south?
the Scobie Pond Substation is the largest hub in all of New Hampshire. So all of the circuits, many circuits feed into Scobie Pond. So as we have some very large right-of-way corridors leaving that substation hub, eventually those corridors narrow down as those circuits spread out and, weave through the various other substations throughout the state.
So that's what happens to, over on the West Road area when it
Yeah, you'll
heads-
see that the
heads
number,
towards
you'll start see
Litchfield
that the
and-
number of
and
circuits
then
will
down
break
south.
off and branch off into various different directions.
There was a little stub there, just west of the line that goes down towards Hudson in one of the drawings I looked at before. What is that? Trying to find it here.
Is that this, Ann? Is that what you're?
Find it. Out of drawings.
I'm thinking on page 26, Ann, is that what you're thinking of is?
Okay, page 26. Yeah, just curious about that because that looked like it stopped.
I don't know if that's a misprint,
Yeah,
Connor,
right.
or
It's,
that's
if you look at number one, area number one. Where does that go to?
Artifact or
Oh,
something like
okay.
that?
Ah,
That's stub.
okay, yeah, that's two of the 115 kV lines branch off at that particular location. They do continue on further further south, but for the sake of this plan set, they weren't shown. The
Okay.
extension of that.
So
Okay.
it does extend, it continues.
It doesn't,
Yeah.
you can see here, and that it extends beyond, but I'm guessing it's outside of the scope of any work.
Right, yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at 26 and it doesn't, I
If you
don't
go
see
on
it.
Google Earth, you can get a very clear
Okay, thanks.
vision of the network. Yep.
What page is that on? Is that,
This is 26 of that.
because it looks like, to me, it looks like it dead ends right there. Maybe my magnification is.
It actually, so if you, like, if we went on,
Oh, is that,
map.
is that just a thin line? Is that what you're talking about?
so that would be here, and where this is that point, I believe, where this continues down. So you're looking, and what's highlighted
Okay.
is only a portion of it.
Okay.
But that actually does continue all the way down to the, to the.
Where does it cross 102? Does it cross 102? We know where the
So for-
large line is.
So,
Oh, it,
The
it
flea market.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
it's the flea market?
yeah.
it would be in Hudson, right? Where it crosses
That was near the
102?
flea
Okay,
market.
so that's why we don't see it.
Yeah, we're just to elaborate, this particular project it encompasses two different 345 kV structures, one of which heads south there, going towards Hudson and crosses 102 by the flea market.
Right.
And the other 345 line, the 380, stays sort of in a western trajectory.
Okay, I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, Deb?
I don't have
You guys, you'll have these all memorized by the time we're done.
I think Ian has the map all set for hiking out there. Yeah, Jeff?
I just have I have a few questions about project logistics. Okay, so June 2022, a few months, we want to start this work. What applications from the state need to be in place before we start? I know your presentation listed a bunch, the wetlands, someone made a reference that it was, that's more down the road, but what applications need to be signed and delivered before this work
So
can start?
we have, as far as our state permits go, that wetland permit that I touched upon, the statutory permit by notification, that is a 5-day review since it is just a permit by notification. That's only meant for minimal impact projects since this one only has temporary wetland impacts. And then also through the state is a alteration of terrain permit. And that one, I forget the review, but it's a couple months. So we'll be receiving that shortly as well.
Okay.
And then as far as more localized go, we do have quite a few DOT permits that we're working with right now. We just resubmitted those as well. So we'll be hearing back from them within a month as well.
Okay, so they're all in process and waiting.
Yeah,
Correct.
we also have EPA construction general permit. And we also have FAA hazard determination permitting as well. So we have the whole menagerie of permitting for these
Great.
projects that we roll out, so.
Next, so how many months is this project going to take?
Good question.
Good question.
What's the estimate?
I think it's a good, we will probably be into 2023. I think we'll probably be into the spring of 2023 is my guess. Some of it is sequencing, like I said, we'll have, I think the bulk of this particular scope of work could be wrapped up in 2022. I know that some of the section in Londonderry is going to be happening in conjunction with a lot of the 115 change out, and how the contractor sequences that, we don't quite have a clear picture on that. I will say that we've this project, as well as that 115 project, we've been in some extensive conversations with New Hampshire Fish and Game on this. We had originally planned some of this dating back to end of last year, and got a lot of concern from Fish and Game regarding rare turtle concerns, and And so we've actually been delayed quite a while with Fish and Game. We have, though, have had many meetings and have been working diligently on best management practices and things of that nature to give them the level of comfort they need. So we'll be enacting some very stringent best management practices, exclusion, fencing, et cetera, whatnot, so to make sure we can make this project happen.
So I think my next question dovetails into that. So project's done, roughly a year. There's definitely, you have machines going through, you have work going, you have humans touching land. That's obviously you're working with New Hampshire Fish and Game there. What are your cleanup procedures, during and after? And do you come back in a period of time, 6 months to a year, to monitor that land is back to where it was before you started?
Yep, great question. Yep, we do. Under a number of our permits, we are obligated to make sure that we have adequately stabilized and restored any land disturbance areas. Part of our practice now, and the purpose that, one of the reasons we go through alteration of terrain is that traditionally our access in the right-of-way corridor has not been fantastic for a major transmission utility. New Hampshire's we've got, our access routes were not much more than sort of what you'd maybe call a UTV trail or something like that. We are improving access in our right-of-way corridors with gravel access. We are, our structure areas, we install gravel work pad areas that allow for the stability for the equipment to work on that. When we complete our work, the process is typically leveling, clearing for the structure replacement. That area may be as large as 100 by 100. Earth material is stripped off to the side, temporarily stabilized as needed, and then when we are done, we typically reduce the size of the pad to about a 30 by 60 pad. We still want to maintain somewhat of a level area for that structure for future maintenance, but we will blend the earth in with the surrounding topography. Areas will be seeded with conservation seed mix. Believe it or not, our gravel areas are seeded as well, and you do actually get some growth on those areas. Sometimes we will loam back over gravel access, but generally over time those areas will vegetate. It's just for the sake of our maintenance, for the sake of knowing we're going to be back in there to have a well-established access way the next time we go in there without having to recreate this time and time again is advantageous. Wetland areas, we do not undertake any permanent fills in wetland areas. So any of our access in wetland is through timber matting, and we'll typically leave a buffer. We won't put a gravel access right to an edge of a wetland. Usually there's a little bit of a transition zone there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, the structures that you're going to be putting in, are those a single pylon or the traditional high power lines?
These are H-frame structures, so shaped like an H. Yeah, and so they're very much, it was sort of replacing in kind.
Okay.
Because these are, because we are doing just replacing a small subset of the structures, we have to maintain that same structure shape. Yeah.
Yeah, and just as a comment, I've seen your use of mats off High Range Road before. Pretty impressive. That's all I have.
Thank you. We appreciate that. It is. It can be, obviously, during the course of construction, it can look, pretty alarming, this series of mats, but we know from experience that we do have excellent luck in terms of restoration in those areas bouncing back in fairly short order.
Thank you.
Johnny,
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Jason,
Just for my, what's the lifespan on these new towers?
The number I've heard is 70-year.
How does that compare to wood?
Wood varies. I've heard wood anywhere from 30 to 40 years. It's often site dependent. We're just now replacing some wood poles in the North Country that were installed in 1946. So they made it quite a long time. I've been educated that part of that they believe is the colder temperatures help kind of preserve the poles a little bit. The problem you have in the North Country is the bears love to scratch the cedar poles that we have up there. So yeah, you'll see scratch marks all over them. So it can vary, yeah. But I think that I have not seen a formal rating, but 70 years is the number that's been thrown around. They're weathered steel. They have a epoxy coating at the base, so they're completely inert and corrosion resistant at the base, so we don't expect any corrosion issues subsurface.
All right, thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Ted,
I'm wondering, I guess, leading off of Jeff's comments earlier, of the timing of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. You gave, a brief overview of maybe the final completion, but I'm sure there's some people here in the crowd tonight who may want to know when their road or land may be affected. I myself live on Bancroft. I'm not an abutter, but Section 5 does affect me on Bancroft. So I was just curious upon the different section that I know other people in the crowd maybe.
Sure, I can, Lydia, do you want to speak to that as far as how we notify butters on schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can come up.
you can swap seats there.
Sure. Hi.
Welcome.
Hello. Yeah. So Eversource does notify abutters of upcoming transmission maintenance work, typically by mail. So we'll notify abutters identified on the project mapping, and then we also will notify the towns through our community relations liaison. And then we do also make an attempt to do some door-to-door notifications for property owners who would be most affected by the transmission work.
Do you know any of the timing of these different sections of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9?
So are you talking about like the timing of construction?
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any outages. Do we?
Not right now.
Not right
So we
now.
are still early on in the construction sequence. Like Kurt was saying, this is going in junction with the project, the 115 lines right next to it. So we are trying to bounce back and piggyback off of their roads as well. So this early on, it is a little
Will you guys be
difficult.
doing construction during the wintertime?
One of the most limiting aspects of transmission line maintenance work is the time that we are allowed to do the work with the regional planning called ISO New England. So for transmission lines, we can't just work on a line without, willy-nilly, so to speak. We have to, coordinate regionally to make sure that if we're working on a transmission line, that there's enough contingencies that there won't be any impacts to the regional grid.
Right.
So that being said, we are very dictated by a higher power for when we can and cannot do work. So we are limited a lot in the summertime. And so sometimes fall becomes more of an option. Sometimes, we do a lot of work in the spring, more work in the fall. Wintertime can sometimes be tricky as well, just due to winter storms. So we have to kind of, that's the limit that we have a lot of times. And then additionally, any permitting restrictions as well. So we might not have an outage yet because we are still in the outage process, which can sometimes take a little bit of time. But we do notify the town, so if there is, questions, I'll make sure to note that we'll give the towns appropriate notification so that you're aware of when the work is starting.
Sounds good, and hopefully our DPW guy will get word of that, as he's been quite good on social media to alert people when work could be happening across these roadways.
Sure.
There
You
is-
use social media to notify the public what's going on, or, for times?
We I do not know. However, I have worked with towns in the past. If a town has, a website or a Facebook page that we've provided, just some language so that the town can.
Typically, the community liaison, and I believe there's a new community liaison.
There is. I think it's David Greer.
Yes, and
Yep.
he was at a meeting somewhat recently, but he will typically reach out to planning, to engineering, and to the town manager's office and notify us when there's work. Similarly, if there are going to be, helicopters checking lines, those types of things, they do notify us, and then that's normally the type of thing then that Kirby would post on the town's Facebook and the town's social media, and Twitter, and other feeds to get that out there. So that is something that is actively going on for any sort of projects, and the
good.
town tries to make sure we put that out there, so that way, because otherwise we do get a lot of phone calls of what's happening in my backyard, so
Yep.
we could let
I had a
everybody
little
know.
flying helicopter near my house the other day, and I certainly had no idea what was going on that one. So.
The airport activity too.
I don't know about that one.
All set?
It was my helicopter, Ted.
What are you doing, Jake? What are you doing?
I am all set, Mr. Chair.
You are all set. Okay, good. Are there any abutters or anyone from the public with questions, comments, concerns? I'd like to ask Marge, who's the Conservation Commission Chairman, if she has any input for us.
They've already come before us at our
Yes.
last meeting, and we had absolutely no problems because we know that we have experience with what they've done before, and they've always been super cooperative and very attentive to the requirements of Fish and Game and our preferences as well. So we gave them a thumbs up.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Ray Breslin. Ray, you're back again. Hey.
Okay, so one of my questions is this. This is to replace wooden poles, I believe laminated poles. Is that correct?
Not
I
in
don't
this
think
stretch.
so.
Well, the lines you're talking about, I believe, are laminated poles.
This particular project that we have before you is for solid wood poles.
Solid wood poles.
Correct. There's another project.
Yeah,
place that is a laminate
if you could use the microphone, that's so people listening on TV can hear, so please.
Yep. So, this particular project is for two 345 kV wood pole circuits. These are solid wood poles in this instance. There are other laminate wood pole structures that are being replaced as well that was permitted under a different permit, or different
Okay, so-
application with the town.
And so what was brought forth before, that it was 13 miles of poles throughout this town of Londonderry, is that correct?
I don't have that figure for you, yeah.
Do these particular lines that you're going to replace in the poles, do they go completely through Londonderry?
They go through quite a bit of Londonderry, yes.
So
Yep,
pretty much
yep.
the whole. Okay, so that's a lot of poles.
It is.
And when you folks came before, you said, and I asked the question, what was the reasoning for replacing them? It was explained that the woodpeckers were attacking the poles, and that was one of the primary reasons. Is that the reason they're being replaced?
For the solid wood poles that we have, that can be a contributing factor. Our engineering group has an inspection protocol that when we review various structures, as far as competency, et cetera, checking that thing. It's not always a woodpecker, that's not the only instance. In the instance of the laminate wood structures,
Yeah.
those structures were found to be defective. They were defective in terms of their structural capabilities.
Oh, okay, so I don't want to get in too deep here and ask too many questions, but has it been a problem with laminated poles failing nationwide or in your
So,
system.
Ray, we actually aren't here to discuss.
This is not an
themselves.
inquisition.
Happy,
Right.
happy to
Right,
address it,
that's
yeah.
not a chronic
Yeah, but
examination or anything.
okay.
It's just about,
Right.
them doing the work for the polls.
I understand. Okay, let me just get to the bottom point here.
You could always contact, I'm sure, Eversource, and they would be glad to sit down with you and explain things.
Okay, but this is a public comment time. Is it going to be another time? we can
Yes,
ask-
I'm okay with the questioning up to this point.
Okay,
okay.
so probably not only in the town of Londonderry, perhaps in other towns throughout the state, you're going to be replacing poles also, correct?
Unfortunately,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Now, here's kind of my concern. What is the benefit to the town of Londonderry for replacing these poles and putting up steel poles? I don't see, most of this electricity that is being shipped through Londonderry is going south to Massachusetts. It has really very little benefit to us here in Londonderry, and for that matter, in the state of New Hampshire, okay? And that's of concern. And on top of that, we're talking about the impact, whatever it may be, with wetland. And by the way, this is impacting considerable wetland. Some things have been highlighted here, but it's causing a lot of other wetlands. And you're talking about taking these poles down, putting up steel poles. Are they going to be screw piles into the ground?
These are direct embed. So, we drill a hole, we put in we call it a caisson, sort of a corrugated pipe.
Right.
We place the structure into that pipe backfill
And fill it with cement?
with crush.
Crushed stone?
Yeah.
Crushed stone, yeah. Okay, well, you guys have a job to do. But, this is having considerable impact on the town of Londonderry. I'm not sure what the benefit is to us. Okay, I mean, you're providing a vital service. I appreciate that.
Right.
That's a good thing. But most of it's being shipped through here, and it's really affecting the town. We got a lot, wait a minute, you got a lot of poles, wooden poles, here in the town of Londonderry. If you're talking about they got to be replaced because they're deteriorating, well, you're going to have to replace a lot of them.
Yeah, that's why you see us so often.
They're quite busy, Ray.
Not only Londonderry,
we gotta
throughout the
keep our
state.
lights on, too.
Throughout the state.
And we are replacing our wood pole infrastructure.
Okay, and so.
Due to aging, and the laminate wood pole situation that you speak of is I fully agree. I'm a ratepayer myself.
Well-
Very, very unfortunate that some of these structures are not that old.
Well, yeah.
But
and-
due to.
You've got a laminated pole, and you put two wires on one side and one on the other.
Yeah.
It tips the pole. You got a laminated pole. Potentially, there's going to be some failure there.
Right. Those poles unfortunately never lived up to the specifications that were provided. This Eversource's replacement of these poles has actually been vetted through ISO New England. So it was identified that, yes, they agree that, yes, these are defective. As far as benefits to the town of Londonderry, there is tax revenue every time we put new infrastructure in. We continue, the reason you have so many transmission poles in Londonderry, again, is largely basically due to Scobie Pond Substation, which is a very large substation, probably the largest substation complex in the state, which generates massive amounts of revenue for the town of Londonderry. Massive.
Massive.
Yes, you could go talk to the assessor, Ray.
Yeah. I don't have that figure,
Well-
but I would urge you to look it up. And
Well-
the continuous upgrades in that substation, I can guarantee you that that Eversource is paying quite a bit of tax revenue in Londonderry.
Okay, one last question. Who is financing the money to replace all of this and put up the new steel poles? Where is that money coming from?
The money Eversource gets capital investment. We get, when you pay your electric bill, ultimately, it's paid for
So
by
it's
ratepayers.
being paid for by ratepayers
Yeah.
only?
Well,
Or are there investors that invest into these
ultimately,
structures?
Ultimately, there is, as far as Eversource raising capital, that we are a publicly traded company, correct? Ultimately, the revenue comes from the ratepayers. And if you look at your bill and you look at your transmission charge, that will be what you pay, what everybody in New Hampshire pays. And that cost is also regionalized. So it gets a little complicated. What we pay is regionalized throughout the state, so that it's not just us in New Hampshire do not pay just for our New Hampshire infrastructure. There's money flowing in across state lines.
I guess what I'm getting at is it's not just the ratepayers that are going to be paying for this. This money's got to come from someplace else. Who actually owns the poles?
Eversource.
Eversource owns all the poles.
To my understanding, sure. Yep, they'd be an Eversource asset. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank the board.
Okay, okay, Ray. Is there anyone else? You've come back.
Haven't seen him in forever.
Thanks.
Good to see a lot of faces. John LaFerriere, 331 Mammoth. Hi, folks. Quick question, and I'm representing 333 Mammoth that abuts. Question is that on 333, with all the activity that's been going on in the power lines, there was a fence that was put up probably about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, for 333 when the first expansion went through. This last expansion, when we did the metal, and then subsequently you've been doing clearing during those times. There used to be a buffer in there. So now what we have is a lot of problems with that fence aging out. The fence wasn't installed properly, so the landowner and myself have actually had to shore the fence up. So it's pretty much at the end of life. So what we're looking at is during this phase, and obviously we were contacted, if there is anything that we can do about that, because obviously now that corridor is, during wind coming out of the north is brutal. Coming down, it comes all the way down through Mammoth and then up, but it hits us pretty good. And that fence has been a good buffer.
Okay.
But again, it's something that has been, replaced, and we've had to prop up and spend some money on to basically keep the fence alive. There has been no any type of shrubbery or anything put around the fence, and as you went and cleared last November, I believe, you were clearing up against the fence, and you keep encroaching on any type of shrubbery or bush that's there, or tree that's there, to clear off the lines, which I understand, because obviously we don't want to have that problem. But it's become a situation where it needs to be addressed, and I'm not sure if that's something to address here, but we wanted to bring it to the attention, during this project to see if there's something that can be done about it.
Can I borrow your microphone?
No, go right ahead.
Why don't I grab your contact information and we can set up a site visit with you and your neighbor and kind of see what we can come up with. How's that sound?
Okay, fantastic.
Perfect. I'll give you my card and grab your contact information.
Mr. Chadbourne, thank you. Good to see you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else? I don't see any. We'll bring it back to the board and decision time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to grant approval of the conditional use permit for 64,137 square feet of temporary wetland impact and 102,025 square feet of buffer impact within the Conservation Overlay District for the proposed replacement of transition line structures along the existing transmission line right-of-way, Public Service Company of New Hampshire, DBA Eversource Energy applicant.
Second.
Motion by Al, second by Jake. Any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair's affirmative, motion carries. You have a conditional use permit, and good luck, and thank you for
Thank you.
your time
Appreciate
also.
it. Until we meet again.
I learned some stuff too, so.
Yeah, happy to provide whatever information I can, so thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, next week, we have one item, Colleen?
Yes, so there's only one item on the agenda for next week. It's a amendment to the approved plan for 5 Aviation Park. As the board may recall, there was a site plan for the Loomis facility and also another warehouse manufacturing facility. It was all part of one site plan, so they are coming in with a phasing amendment, which would allow for occupancy of the Loomis building while the other building is still under construction. So that's the one item you have on the agenda next week.
Okay, any other business? Board,
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
a motion to adjourn. Second by Jeff. All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.